Hey, folks, welcome to the show. It's another Wednesday night. It's another top 5 ranking show. So, the band that we're going to be discussing tonight is the band Cheap Trick. They've been around for a very, very long time, and they're still out there doing it. They're still rocking, they're still putting out new product. And I got myself a few Cheap Trick experts to join me in discussing Cheap Trick. So, I'd like to welcome Doug Broad to the show. Doug, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And we also have Sean Kelly with us. Welcome, Sean.
Hey, man. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, man. And to round out the troop, we've got Martin Popoff. How are you, sir?
Hey, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right, cool. It's going to be a fun show, man. I know this is going to be a fun show. Cheap Trick is a fun band. This is going to be a fun show. So I always start the same way. I go around and I just ask everyone sort of what was their first exposure to Cheap Trick and, what got them into the band. So I'm just going to go start with Doug, and then we'll go Sean and then Martin. So, Doug, first exposure to Cheap Trick.
My first exposure was I read about the first album when it came out. I was, I guess, around 13 years old, and I bought it and I loved it. And I was a fan from, the first spin. I thought they were just a different kind of band. They weren't quite hard rock. They weren't quite punk. You didn't know what they were. They were just a smart, funny, kind of heavy rock and roll band. And then in 1980, I saw them for the first time at Madison Square Garden in New York with the Romantics opening.
Oh,
and they were great. And it's funnily enough, it was their first and only New York arena headlining show. They never headlined a New York arena again after that show. So it was at their peak. It was during the Dream Police album. So
right.
That was it. And I was all in from the first record.
Cool. What about yourself, Sean?
Well, surprise, surprise, it happened in the 80s for me. And it was actually the Lap of Luxury record, because Cheap Trick was just a band that I read about in like Hit Parade or as an influence on the bands I was actually listening to at the time. Right. And I guess around 87, Aerosmith went out on the Permanent Vacation tour, and my buddy got tickets, and he said, "Oh yeah, I went and there was this band Cheap Trick, and they were really good, man." And I said, "Oh yeah, I remember the the reading about them, and but they were always kind of like one of those older bands who was playing catch up. I wasn't too interested until later on in high school. I finally heard a copy of Budokan, and I went, "Oh, this changes everything." And they became a primary influence on me as a musician. And so really from a musical, like change your life point of view, it was Budokan. From an awareness point of view, it was Lap of Luxury when The Flame was like the #1 single.
Right. Well, yourself, Martin.
Well, I got the first album as a new release. Loved it. It just slotted in with everything else at the time. And it was really cool. And I had a few different things about it. But the other really neat thing is I never saw a lot of concerts as a young kid, but we happened to be on vacation going across Canada. I'm from Trail, BC, small town in BC. So we happened to be on one of these cross Canada on the family camper van vacations. And we saw the whole family went and saw Kiss with Cheap Trick supporting in 1977, 78, whatever the tour that brought Kiss Alive 2 out, right? And I remember we were just driving around on the family van, and I saw my first rock star of all time. It was out in the world, and it was a white suited Robin Zander and one of the other guys getting in a limo. Just hanging around the Montreal Forum or whatever. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I had a younger brother who's now deceased, Brad. He died at 49, but Cheap Trick was his favorite band, and we played some of his stuff at his celebration of life. We played some Cheap Trick at that. But yeah, he always loved Cheap Trick and Kiss and Nazareth. And I've always been a big fan since the early days, and seen him a few more times after that, but interviewed him a lot of times over the years, and still just play them regularly.
Yeah, the Kiss connection with me is sort of how I found out about Cheap Trick as a young kid. I always found them kind of as a parallel to Kiss in the sense that, Kiss had the four characters. Well, Cheap Trick kind of had characters too, right? You had the nerdy guitar player, right? You had the sort of accountant, didn't want to be their drummer. And then you had the two pretty boy rock stars. So it's sort of like, I always found kind of I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that sort of image,
Mhm.
But yeah, they were one of those bands sort of like, Sean, kind of on the periphery kind of thing. They never kind of hit home. I mean, you'd hear their music and it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but you never really locked in, and I, we're talking off air, and even now, like, I mean, they've in doing research for this show, I'm finding out these records that just came out that are, kind of under the radar, never really, they, never got any big fanfare, and they've been putting out a lot of music over a lot of years, and I don't think, like, like you were saying, Doug, like after Dream Police, like, you know, who followed this band, who's buying these records. I mean, they had their peaks and valleys, but we'll talk all about that as we go through the show. So all right, so let's go in the same order, and we're gonna pick our 5 favorite. Again, these are just our opinions on the albums that we like best, and we're just gonna go from 5 to 1 in that order. And yeah, we'll start with Doug. So what was your number 5 favorite Cheap Trick album?
My top four always stay the same. My number 5 fluctuates from mood to mood, and right now it's Standing on the Edge, their 1985 record.
Wow.
Which has Tonight It's You on it, which I think is one of their greatest songs. One of their top 3 songs probably. And it was kind of a return to form for them, because they were kind of lost in these hinterlands for a while after Dream Police came out. Put out a bunch of records with different producers. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work. They got back together with Jack Douglas, who produced the first record and who also helped record or helped produce the Budokan record. And it's just a remarkable collection of songs. It's a great collection of songs with really, really great lyrics, and it's fun. It's a fun record.
Cool. All right. What about yourself, Sean? What do you got for number 5?
Well, I called it a late in the game audible. Like, I was flipping back and forth too on this, but I went for a Next Position Please for number 5.
Wow.
That's my alternate.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It kind of speaks to another one I'll talk about in a second. But I Can't Take It could be my favorite Cheap Trick song of all time. To me, it's like perfect power pop. It's basically like a template for Sloan. I'm sure Sloan heard this song, or someone just kind of said, okay, like, we'll do that. That sounds good. Todd Rundgren production, so many cool little things. I'm not nuts about the album sonically. It's, it's a little thin, but that aside from that, I love the arrangement choices. It's got Borderline. I always love it when there's that Roy Orbison moment for Xander. There's always that one, Tonight It's You on when you were just talking about, Doug, where he can just really, he croons like no other. I love it when he kind of does the crooning thing. I also love I Don't Love Her. When they have a great way of taking those Beatles riffs, turning them around, turning the notes around, like they take Day Trip or something, turn the notes around, and then they just move it around in different keys, but it's the same riff that keeps coming back. And they do that so effectively. And that's one of my favorite examples of Rick Nielsen's kind of one of his songwriting maneuvers. I love Next Position Please, even though Roy Thomas Baker actually produced the one before it. It's got that Cars thing at the beginning. And then you were talking Walter, about the the two pretty boys and then the two kind of nerdy looking guys or whatever. Dichotomy, right? So I love the fact that you get this sweet verse, and then you get the sour chorus, and you get the sunny, and you get the dark. It's happy clown, it's evil clown, and Cheap Trick does that kind of thing so well. So I think there's lots of great examples, and there's a classic Cheap Trick creep factor. Younger girls, they do creepy pop really well, and that's a good example. So the rest of the record's kind of hit and miss for me, to be honest with you, but those ones stand out as strong.
Right, cool.
I never thought about the Sloan comparison, but yeah, I could see that.
Check out "Coax Me" by Sloan, and then listen to "I Can't Take It." Pretty interesting.
Yeah, Martin, number 5.
All right. Well, I had these to show, but I couldn't find my copy of Rockford. I've got all the other later ones, but I don't know where my Rockford is. But Rockford is my one. I really love "Welcome to the World." That big huge chorus that comes in. I mean, all of these later ones by them. They're kind of interchangeable in a way, and essentially what happens is you find the type of Cheap Trick song that you want them to write, a bunch of them falling on one album, and then that's the album that you're going to love.
Exactly, yeah.
And Perfect Strangers, devastating. It's such a cool, emotional song. That's my favorite later period song they ever did. If It Takes a Lifetime was cool. Eau Claire, kind of the mellow one with the little plinky piano, Beatles kind of thing going on to begin with. One More is a strange, funky thing they do on it. Yeah, out of all these later ones, there are definitely albums where I'm not liking a good half or 3/5 of it or whatever. Like, and because I trust them so much as songwriting geniuses, it's just I'm just disagreeing with them in terms of I don't like that kind of song, and I'm not happy about it. One other thing that bothers me about some of this latest Cheap Trick stuff, though, and I've noticed it on the last album and the one before, I'm starting to really get annoyed at the production. I'm finding the production really kind of like safe and polite, and kind of this snappy high tune snare, and the guitars are like they're reminding me a little bit of like late period AC/DC guitars, where you're not really feeling the heaviness, no matter how aggressive a heavy song of theirs is played. You're just not feeling the aggression in anything. So there's this sameness that's starting to happen across the productions, and it's a little bit on Rockford as well. But back on Rockford, I mean, we're going all the way back to 2006. I just thought that this was such a fresh album of great songs. Dream the Night Away. What a great chorus on that one as well. Every Night, Every Day is one of the rootsy ones on it. So yeah, I just feel like on this one, of the later period ones, it's just got all the songs I really like. But I am starting to lose patience with them. I wasn't crazy about the last album.
Oh yeah, it's funny because Rockford is often quoted as sort of the rebirth of they remembered how to write a song again. Like it's the comeback record, even though they've been putting records before and since. But
Got a
yeah,
lot of those.
yeah.
I got another comeback record that's even going to be higher on my list. But yeah, anyways,
all right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was saying off air, I think my picks are going to be very contrarian because I'm not married to any Cheap Trick record, except for maybe one. But the other ones, it's like I'm, totally fresh ears listening to them and, just picking what I like. And the reason I I preface this is because this is probably going to be a lot higher on most people's list. But my number 5 is Dream Police, right? 1979, Tom Werman production.
Dream Police thing. That's the inner sleeve with all this orange matching, fully signed ticket in the corner. That's
very cool. Very cool
as well. Yeah.
It would rank higher, but there's a couple of just throwaway stuff on here that I mean, Gonna Raise Hell, like that's 5 minutes too long. What's the other one on there? Need Your Love could be a little bit shorter. But it's got one of my favorite Cheap Trick tunes. Well, a couple of them on there. Dream Police, the title cut. That song is that's the perfect, Cheap Trick song. And I love Voices. Always love that song. It's fantastic. It's got some great rockers. Way of the World. I'll Be With You Tonight. Writing on the Wall. It's got that AC/DC type of tune on there. I Know What I Want. I wish Robin sang that, it would have been a much better song than Tom Peterson singing it. Yeah, that it would, again, if it didn't have a couple of those clunkers on there, because it kind of just weigh the whole album down. It's like, come on, guys. It's almost like, we got to kill some we need another 3 or 4 minutes on this record, so let's beat this to death. But if it wasn't for that, it would have ranked a lot higher. But yeah, Dream Police is my number
I
5.
want to say hi to Joe Becht. He's in the comments there. He's a loyal Contrarians and History in 5 Songs guy. But he's from Chicago. He's our Chicago expert on all our panels on the Contrarians. But there he is chiming in there. It's cool to see him here. So
Very
yeah.
cool. Joe Beck, welcome. And welcome everybody to the show. Thanks for watching. That's awesome. Yeah, we got 30 folks in here. Thank you so much. All right, we're down to number 4. It's you, Doug.
My number 4 is Dream Police. Following up on what you said, yeah, it's an interesting progression for them, because with the first album they went really raw. Jack Douglas produced them in such a way that he wanted to capture their live sound. Second record went with Tom Werman, who wanted to make them into a radio-friendly pop band, and the record is, it's chirpy, it's upbeat and chirpy. It has no real sort of edge to it, no thrust to it. I still love that record. And then Heaven Tonight kind of took those pop elements and added some orchestration and put some oomph behind it. And that was also Tom Werman. And now with Dream Police, which was Tom Werman, he just basically threw everything in there, the kitchen sink. So he made this heavily orchestrated, booming record with beautiful, beautiful moments like Voices, and also some of their heaviest material, as you said, is on that record. Things like Gonna Raise Hell, I Know What I Want, Need Your Love. Need Your Love is kind of an unsung gem off of that record. It's one of those songs that kind of feels like it goes on forever, but it builds up to this intense crescendo and this guitar frenzy at the end that's really remarkable. But as you said, Walter, some of the greatest pop songs are on that record, like Way of the World, I'll Be With You Tonight, the opening track. It's an extraordinary record, and it's the record that I saw them tour off the first time I saw them. But it's funny, because right after the record came out and that tour was done, Tom had left the band, so that it was their high point, and from then on things got kind of out of control.
Yeah. No, there's some really classic, Cheap Trick cuts on that record. Yeah, there's no denying that. Sean, number 4.
Well, for number 4, I went for One on One.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why.
Please.
To me,
Please.
Next Position, Please, and One on One, they're like the amuse-bouche of the catalog. I need them for the palate cleanser. And what I love it. I listen to bands empathetically as a musician. I like to put myself in the headspace when they're making the record, and you can tell this is the "we're gonna shake it up" record. Robin's gonna sing like he's gonna rip his vocal cords apart. He is singing so intensely on this. Even the background vocals are sung with so much intensity. You've got like Roy Thomas Baker. They probably got a bunch of blow going on. They're throwing gated snares on everything. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be massive. I like hearing Rick play with a more saturated guitar tone, because I like what it brings out in his playing. You don't get the color that you get in the earlier albums, or the raw or more organic tones, but I like the chunk. I Want You. I think you got 3 killers right off the top. I Want You, One on One goes back to that thing where they take a cool riff and they just keep moving it around the key areas, kind of draws you in. If You Want My Love, another Roy Orbison moment that I love, when Robin, brings that vibe.
Words.
And it's all sunshine, and then that guy just makes you feel like the world is going to literally end somehow. You got the descending chord things going on in the pre-chorus, and it's building up. No, it's okay. If you want my love, you got it. It's okay. Even though there's also the creep factor, and I do love that creep factor. Speaking of which, maybe top Top 4. I'll say I'll be brave. She's Tight is one of my top Cheap Trick songs. What a bunch of creeps. What a creepy song. But man,
Not a fan.
what's that?
I'm not a fan of that one.
Yeah, well, CC DeVille is, I think, because we know
Yeah.
that's a riff from Dog Dirty to me, right? So, and man, I just crack up. Just the line, "She's a talented girl," like the delivery of it so and it just cracks me up. I think it's ridiculous, but it's so hooky, and the background vocals. I like the melodic variations in it. What about the end there? Saturday at Midnight. I think it's quirky and weird. It's got the Alice Cooper clones thing. That must have been a thing going on back then. It's like, we got the synth, and it does that thing. So we'll put that on records.
I love that song.
Yeah, that was cool. And then the rest, I Want Be Man, not good. Kind of falls apart near the end. But yeah, you know what? I put this on, and it just kind of makes me happy. Ooh, la, la. Yeah, I like it. I like it for when I want to hear Cheap Trick being something different than what I really think they are.
Interesting. Martin, you're number 4.
Okay, my number 4, I'm going with Cheap Trick, the 1997 second self-titled album. When this came out, all of us rock critic guys were really excited about it, loved it. It was on Red Ant. I think Red Ant was like a short-lived label,
11 months
out or something.
Yeah,
but to me, the whole standing on the edge, woke up with a monster is the not great. To me, that's the buildup to them really becoming okay. We're now timeless again. The songs are not linked to any time at all. They're just really cool. But what I love about this album is it's got a darkness to it and kind of a heaviness to it. It's almost like a cult talisman. We played this to death when this came out. I played this many times, like probably 100, 200 times. And it starts out with Any Time, which is that dark, heavy, swirling sort of weird one. And Robin's just screaming away. Hard to Tell, just really good Cheap Trick pop. Carnival's a weird pop one. Shelter is that kind of heartbreaking, no drums, very quiet ballad, dark ballad. You Let a Lot of People Down is a really cool one. Like that's a really edgy, dark, pretty heavy one where you can hear the anger in their voices, right? Say Goodbye is a good ballad on there. Wrong All Along, kind of a punky pop one. So to me, this is really the start of as we did in the Heart episode. Heart eventually starts again, right? To me, this is the Cheap Trick starting again thing. And yeah, there was just, everybody loved this when it came out. Everybody was really, really pleased and sort of like the whole rock critic community. And yeah, I played it to death. So fond memories of that one. There you go.
Martin, I have to tell you, if you pick up Doug's book, I do actually share a story of meeting them on that tour.
Okay.
That's pretty funny. I won't give it away. I want people to go get Doug Broad's book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember Red Ant. I was working at a record store at the time, and I remember how enthusiastically they spent money and how quickly they went away.
Right. Yes. Okay. Now I remember that story. Yeah. Yeah.
That's like their grunge record, right? That's Cheap Trick's grunge record.
Actually, Welcome to the Monster is the grunge record, really.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, the previous one. That was the when they jumped from Epic to Warner Brothers, and they had Ted Templeman produce them. Welcome with the Monster. In fact, the title track has more of that kind of
I love that song
sound.
Yes.
But yeah, that to me was, I mean, for the band, when I interviewed them, Rick said that record was what they had hoped would be the first record in the second half of their career, but it wasn't, obviously, and it wasn't until that next one that Martin was extolling. That was the record that even though it was kind of like invisible in a way and kind of a phantom record, it was the one where fans took notice again and said, okay, these guys are back and they're making quality music again.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is Rockford, 2006. This was, I mean, again, going through their catalog, this was a great return to what made Cheap Trick great. This record it's off the charts. Right from the opening track, Welcome to the World, you can hear that they're back. Like that's like we're here. We're back. We've arrived. Um, not my favorite sounding record though. The production on the record, to me, it sounds like there's just way too much going on. It sounded kind of convoluted. And also overall, I find the sonics a little bit flat. But there's some great songs on there. Perfect Stranger, which was a co-write with
Linda Perry, I think.
Linda
Linda
Perry.
Perry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not Concrete Blonde, Four Non Blondes. Yeah, very good song, very hooky. Yeah, it's got that nice changeover bridge part that's really cool. If It Takes a Lifetime, another hooky chorus. I mean, these guys are the masters of hooky choruses. Like they know how to suck you in on those choruses. Come on, come on, come on. Great rocker. Eau Claire, Oh Beatles. I mean, there's the Beatles stuff is just permeates so much, like what you're saying, Sean. It just you're hearing, wait a minute, I heard that, wait a minute, that's, you know what I mean? There's all these little Easter egg Beatle references in so many of their songs. Give It Away, another great rocker, and I mean, we kind of mentioned it, but is there any other singer that has the versatility of a Robin Zander? That guy can sing freaking anything.
Yeah.
He can go from like a punky kind of just a belting tune to like just the smoothest, like you were saying, Sean, like the whole crooning, the ballad thing. That guy has such an amazing, ability and dynamic range in his voice, and he can deliver a lyric, man. Like that guy's, a very, I think, in the world of rock, an unsung hero. Like nobody's talking about Robin Zander, and this guy's been nailing it for years. And he's one of the guys, and there's not a lot of them that have been around this amount of time that can still sing at that level. He's just one of those guys.
Hack, before I forget, the other cool thing about Perfect Stranger is it reveals their antisocial streak that a lot of people don't know about Cheap Trick, right? But it's got this really honest, really cool lyric to it, right? It's a masterpiece. It's my favorite of all their later stuff.
Yeah. That whole record is killer. Honestly, it's killer. Okay. We're down to number 3, Doug.
Well, my number 3 Cheap Trick record is In Color from 1977, their second album. And like I said before, that's the one that Tom Werman started with them. And he wanted to make them into a radio-ready rock band. Unfortunately, he made them into a radio-ready rock band, but the radio didn't want to play them. But that record just is full of what I think are some of their best songs. Well, they open with Hello There, which is their kind of staple in concert now, or has been for pretty much their entire career. But it has songs like Big Eyes, Southern Girls, Oh Caroline, Downed, which is just an incredible, like, atmospheric, hazy, dreamy, kind of druggy rock song. And So Good to See You, and Come On, Come On. Just a great run of songs. And when you think about it, that record also has the original version of I Want You to Want Me. And that is the worst song on that record.
It is.
So that's the worst song on that record. The record has got to be extraordinary. And it is.
Yeah.
I eventually they went in the studio again to try to remake that record with Steve Albini around the time of the 97 record. And I don't know if you guys have heard that version, the raw Steve Albini version. And I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, I like the power that they give to it, but I think there's something to be said for the subtleness and the kind of the nuances that Tom Werman brought to the original record.
Interesting. So, Sean, number 3, what do you got?
I'm going with the debut. With the debut for my number 3. And here's a band fully formed. This is it. This is us. This is what we do. If you ask me for the definitive Cheap Trick album, I said, this is it. This has got all the stuff in its raw form. The guitars are just ripping. You can hear the speakers. You can hear the cloth on the speakers being pushed, right?
Yeah.
It's clean, but it's definitive Rick guitar playing. I mean, once again, Daddy should have stayed in high school. You got your creep factor, that's in there.
Yeah.
Hello Kitty's classic glam. I covered that one with my band Crash Kelly, and I will tell you, you want to talk about learning to respect Robin Zander, just try covering a Cheap Trick song. I won't be doing that anytime again soon, because I mean you can't top it, right? You can't even come close. But it's so much fun to tear it apart and see what it is elementally. You see so much White Album Beatles in there, so much Lennon-y angst, and every once in a while a little nod to Paul, but really more like from the Wings side of thing, I think. He's a whore. I mean, like that's punk rock. That's as punk rock as anything to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. To me, it's definitive Trick. And from there, I would say that's definitive, but I have others that then they could go and explore, but they had already established who and what they were with that record.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally. Yeah. Martin, number 3, what do you got?
Okay, number 3, I'm going with Next Position, Please. Love this record to death. I love the sound of it. I love the fact that it's small and it's different. It's got that we're playing in a matchbox kind of hectic, hyped up thing that Todd does for some people, but not for others. He didn't really do that for XTC, but XTC actually does that on other records, and it kind of mirrors what they do on here. But in my notes here as well, I had I Can't Take It and Next Position, Please are probably my 2 favorite Cheap Trick songs of all time. Both of those, I love them to death. I love the Roy Orbison reference there. I was trying to think. For me, I was gonna say my notes say like 50s rock and roll skiffle, but Roy Orbison nails it perfectly. That's really what it is, right? And there is that feel on here occasionally, and definitely on Borderline. But yeah, Younger Girls, good chorus on that. Don't Make It Our Love a Crime is kind of a quirky one. Won't Take No for an Answer has this big kind of military epic chorus on it where you just like it, you're just like raising your fist. Won't take no for an answer, right? Heaven's Falling is also like right at the end of the album. Amazing song in there.
That is one of their greatest songs.
Yeah, that's one of them modulation kind of songs,
it's
right?
A
I guess
song, but
it's a Todd tune, right? Yeah,
but it's a wonderful Cheap Trick song.
Yeah, and then Invaders of the Heart is really cool too. Very frantic and cool. Like it's a great ending to the record. So yeah, I've always just loved this one. I'm a little up and down on One and The Doctor, and the other one's kind of in and around here. But I just thought the whole Todd Rundgren thing, I just was championing it. Kind of from that. It's not that I'm a massive Todd fan or even know much about him, but I just know often when he produces something odd and special happens, and it totally happens on here because this is the only album they have that is arranged and mixed and produced quite this way.
Right.
And it's like we're just giving up the heaviness. The heaviness is gone for a minute. We're not going to really try that at all. And it's just in this small kind of playing in a matchbox thing that I just love. It just has a real urgency to it. So there you go.
Well, one thing I'll say about Borderline has one of the best bridges of any Cheap Trick song. I'm not crazy about the chorus. I love the verse. I love the bridge. I'm not crazy about the chorus, but I love the song.
Cool. Nice.
All right. This one may shock you. As ranking as high as it did. And again, I'm listening to this with fresh ears, and what I kept coming back to, the latest 2009, Julian Raymond produced it. It's the last album with Bunny Carlos. Album ranks high for me is Rick's guitar playing on this record is just exceptional. The parts that he's playing underneath the vocal, I mean, the supporting the vocal. One thing about Rick is a song guy. There's not big guitar solos in every song. It's not about that.
No.
It's like in place of a guitar solo, a second chorus or whatever, And but yeah, I really, really dig his playing on this. I'm not crazy about the cover when the lights are out. That was unnecessary. Doing that Slade cover. Miss Tomorrow, that is the perfect pop song. It's absolutely perfect. Sick Man of Europe, great rocker. There's that quirky guitar that Rick, his style, he kind of just perfected this whole quirky guitar type of playing. Uh, and there's some really good bass going along there with Tom Peterson's doing some really cool bass stuff underneath. Everybody knows, fantastic song, great song. Rick's riffing and playing, again, amazing. Time of Our Lives is another fantastic song, and that is one that has one of the few songs that actually has a little bit of a Rick solo in it. He's doing a little bit of slide in there. Very, very cool. It's just a really great collection of songs. And I don't like albums that, it's the same, if they're all rockers or they're all this or that. One thing about Cheap Trick is, they'll slow it down, they'll speed it up. There's enough variety that you can listen to an album and not really get that ear fatigue thing going. And this is a record top to bottom. And this was a record that for me was under the radar. I didn't even know this record existed, man. And then when I was researching the show, I went and I was going through the whole catalog, and I'm like, the latest. And I'm listening. I'm like, holy, this thing's amazing. Love this record. Yeah. So that's my number 3.
I think Todd Youth played some guitar on that record. Doug, do you know anything about that? Did Todd play on that record?
He played on at least one of their albums because he was part of the Julian Raymond Mafia, his session Mafia. Because they also played on Glenn Campbell around the same time. Glenn Campbell had a solo album that Julian Raymond produced. So yeah, he definitely played on on at least that record or maybe more.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Todd was a guy. Rest in peace. Amazing musician. But we toured. He was in a band called Chelsea Smile, and my band toured with him. We got to know each other. Great guitar player.
I saw that tour.
That's right.
I saw in New York.
All right, number 2, Doug.
Yeah, so my number 2 is the debut album from '77, the first record of theirs that I heard, and what captivated me about that record was just how different it sounded and how kind of twisted it was. That you could really tell from that record that these guys were coming from some very different place. The songs weren't all about girls and smoking in the boys' room, and they weren't about the typical rock and roll topics. I mean, he was writing songs about serial killers and pedophiles and mandocello, which is this antiquated instrument, and A Hot Love obviously is maybe their one kind of giveaway to the zeitgeist at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was just that record just did it all for me. And yeah, the twistedness is what really was appealing to me. And when I interviewed Rick Nielsen, he told me that he gets his inspiration half from real life and half from fantasy, but he loves reading tabloid papers and magazines like the National Enquirer. That's where he gets a lot of his material from, he told me. So it's definitely there. You can hear it.
Cool. Number 2, Sean, what do we got?
I went with Heaven Tonight for number 2. That's my number 2. For obvious reasons. I mean, Surrender. I mean, that's it. And once again, I listen selfishly. I listen as a musician, and there's some things that just, this. And Martin, do you play, Doug? I never asked you. Do you play anything?
I don't play. No.
But there are certain things that just fall under your fingers or fall into your heartbeat. Certain rhythms For me, it's bum 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 bum. Gilby Clarke and I like that rhythm, and that's probably why I got a gig with him, because we both lock into that feel. And that is, Surrender. As soon as I heard that, I just locked in with the rhythm. Obviously, the riffs, the topics, the lyrics. It's amazing. On Top of the World, incredible. California, great cover. You get a little bit of the history. That was a cover, right? Was that Roy Wood and Wizard or the Move?
Move.
It was Move. Okay. Yeah. But it's got the Roy Wood in there somewhere. But the big ones for me, Auf Wiedersehen, just the intensity of the just so Rick with the octaves against the root, chugging low E, so beautiful. On On the Radio and Heaven Tonight. When we talk about Robin Zander connecting, that guy has the gift of emotional connectivity. It's not always about, I love you. He just sucks you in. Where On the Radio, it's his happy song. Then all of a sudden, it just starts getting so dark, and he's so pleading, and you think something's gonna go wrong. Like he's gonna drive off the side of the road. Like, what's going on? I'm in madness. No, On the Radio, it's okay. We're cool again. But he knows that he can twist you like that.
Yeah.
That's a gift of a connected singer. And Heaven Tonight still scares me. I'm not listening to that by myself downstairs in the basement. That still creeps me out. Like the orchestration, I'm getting the hair on my arm is rising just thinking about, the boom, 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 boom. It's just so powerful. And they don't have to hit you over the head. If they're beating you up, they're putting on nice gloves to do it, It's incredible. So, yeah, I think it's a beautifully produced, arranged, and thought out iteration of what they are.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
I just want to address something that Doug was saying earlier. Yeah, like they were. I mean, around the first record in the late '70s. I mean, like you were saying, they were that was your Led Zeppelin period. Your Aerosmith period and all that. But yeah, Cheap Trick. Yeah, they're coming from a completely different place. They're not. They're not another blues rock band. They're not coming from that. They're coming from like a completely different angle, which always made them different and interesting, right? So that's a good point there.
I don't know what their motivations are. I really don't. I can't figure out why they do this. It doesn't seem to make them overly happy anytime I see them talking. But somehow, like, they're doing it makes me happy, though.
Yeah, it makes a lot of people happy. Yeah. All right, Martin, number 2, what do you got?
One thing I got to mention before we move on, like one of the coolest things, the 2 greatest Rick Nielsen songs ever written, I think, are on the Rick Derringer album, Guitars and Women. It Must Be Love and Need a Little Girl Like You. There's these 2 raging heavy metal songs on this poppy Rick Derringer album. And they're both written by Rick Nielsen. They're the only songs on the album written by Rick, and they're just stomping metal, both of them. And they're so cool. And they got so much class and charisma too. So yeah, one of them's called It Must Be Love, and the other one's called Need a Little Girl or Need a Little Girl Like You or something like that.
I'm checking that out.
By Rick Nielsen. Bizarre.
Yeah.
Anyways, check those out. But my number 2 is I went with the debut. And love this album to death. I gotta disagree a little bit with Sean on this. I mean, I understand what you mean when you say like they come to it with so much experience. They were Fuse, and they've been years doing this, and they know exactly what they're doing. But to me, it's the only album they made that sounds like this. And they move on. So to me, it's a little bit like Van Halen. Where the first one is all business, it's heavier. I mean, this one is not like Van Halen is the most professional album Van Halen would ever make. That's not the case here. But This is the case where you're arriving at the first album, the band you were for the last 5 years. But then Cheap Trick changes immediately, I think. And they do the Tom Werman suite kind of thing. So to me, this is rough and raw and pretty rocking and heavy, and it's a much quirkier band than you would get later. And I find the whole performance on here, to me, I always thought this album sounds like a Who album. It sounds like a band of 4 individuals making music in their separate corners, and it all comes together into this band with a lot of strange personality to it. So it's the Who, basically. I think Maiden's a little bit that kind of band as well. There's not too many. I did a whole episode of History in 5 Songs, my podcast, called Bands of Individuals. And to me, this is a band of individuals, and it's the last time they'll ever sound like this. But I just love you could tell that they've worked these songs in, and they realize which ones work live, and they know exactly what they're doing when they put this together. But unlike Van Halen with Ted Templeman, they didn't go super, super polished and clean and put it all together perfectly. They sound like the Who. And like I say, they never do that again. But yeah, Hot Love is perfect for that. I mean, that's basically Pete Townsend making a bunch of noise, right? And yeah, Hello Kitties is very odds, strange one. Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School. You've got the pop slowly coming through on this, but again, it's still raw. Ballad of TV Violence is like a big who, massive noise, right? Eventually, and Robin Zander, actually, he reminds me of Roger Daltrey at times too. He's got that same sort of roar to him, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So to me, this is quite different from where they would go. And I actually, spoiler alert, I don't have a single, obviously we're near the end anyways. I don't have a single Golden Period album in here because I'm a little not so much. I love Tom Werman as a guy, interviewed him a few times, love him to death. But I find his productions on these records, and even more so the Ted Nugent records, is really kind of thin and weak and unimaginative. And for those reasons, and for reasons of really like taking a hard look at your In Color, Heaven Tonight, Dream Police, I'm not finding enough songs I love on them to put them in my top. In my top. So I don't have any of those coming up, which I found kind of surprising because I've always assumed all my life those are the greatest Cheap Trick albums. And then when I look at them really closely, I've got them all from all these weird different eras, which is testimony to what great songwriters they are.
Well, that's it. It's that type of band, right? If you would have told me before I said I was doing this that Dream Police wouldn't be there for me, like I wouldn't have believed you. Because that song is just so perfect. Like,
the song's perfect. The song is perfect.
But not necessarily everything.
Yeah, dude, the latest was my number 3.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. Well, for my number 2, I love this record. It's got some of my favorite Cheap Trick songs on it. I'm surprised this didn't pop in. Well, maybe it will still. We still got number 1 to go. But I picked All Shook Up, 1980. George Martin famously produced this record. Stop This Game. That is a killer track, man. It's that is like Live and Let Die. That's what that song is, right?
Yeah.
It's a fantastic song. I like the updated rock and roll feel of Just Got Back, and then it's got that Beatle bridge. There's Beatles all over this record. World's Greatest Lover is amazing. Love Comes Tumbling Down, straight up rocker, and then there's that quirkiness that I love about Rick's riffs on Go for the Throat. They always have a way to one thing I love about Cheap Trick is they always have a way to surprise you, when you're listening to them, because, a lot of bands, you hear the first minute of the song, you kind of know the whole song, you know where it's going to go. These guys have a whole thing of these unexpected turns where, the song is one thing, and then this bridge comes just kind of just blindsides you from left field, and it's so super cool. And then these hooks come from nowhere. That is for me one of the coolest things I like about Cheap Trick is their songs are not predictable. They may start here, but they could end up way over there. And I love that trip you take with them, right? I love the journey. Lots of Beatles on this. Go for the Throat. There's a little Dear Prudence in there. I mean, there's all these little Easter eggs of Beatle things, that you hear throughout this record, and just overall, just really good. One of my number 2 in going through the entire catalog. I love this record. All Shook Up, 1980.
Nice.
All right, here we go. We're down to the number 1s. Doug, what do you got?
My number 1 is The Doctor. I'm kidding. My number 1 is Heaven Tonight. Chiefly because it has the greatest rock and roll song ever written, Surrender, on it. And I just think it's the perfect Cheap Trick record, the perfect rock and roll record. For all that Sean said earlier, I agree wholeheartedly. I think some of the more interesting things about that record is you can hear their influences. I mean, obviously with California Man, they covered The Move, but also on a song like Heaven Tonight, the title track, they actually, if you listen to that record and listen to the Procol Harum song Repent Walpurgis, Rick has acknowledged that he has taken the feel from that Procol Harum record and put it on this. And you play them back to back, and it almost sounds like the same song. It's really extraordinary. Rick was really into the, British prog of the day, bands like Pato and Procol Harum and Family and things like that. And you can hear that all in the real, like the density of Heaven Tonight. One of my favorite things about that record is also who they inspired with it. Stiff Competition, which is, I think, one of their best songs. The lyrics are hysterical. It's a great extended metaphor throughout the song for a long penis or a hard penis. And it's just a great song. And who else but the Beastie Boys took that song as a bed for their track She's On It, one of their early singles. So it's just this great record that has these great influences on it and just inspired a lot of people to do some, really great work. And to close on this, to be a little self-indulgent, I had a 40th birthday party at CBGB's basement in Manhattan. And I had a band there, and I had a bunch of musician friends play, and they closed the set with Surrender. And I, as the birthday boy, I got up on stage and sang it. And I was with members of bands like, I don't know if you know, the Figs and the Candy Butchers and Gravel Pit from Boston. And it was just one of the highlights of my life, singing with these great musicians who are all huge fans of the band, and cool. Just put a smile on my face.
Neat.
That's awesome. I love that.
Very cool. Very cool. Sean, what do you got? What's your number one?
My number one is In Color. And I went for that. And, I think probably from an artistic point of view or a quality point of view, whatever you want to call it, I could have made a good argument for Heaven Tonight being my number one. But this is, once again, I'm a selfish listener. For me personally, this clicks all the boxes. Hello There. That just awakens all the arena rock fantasies. What a great way to start a record. I start my kindergarten classes like that, by the way, with Hello There, ladies and gentlemen. Kindergarten kids like it. Old people like me like it. Big Eyes. To me, that is a riff. I must have stolen that riff. I don't know, 7 or 8 times on compositions. And probably every time I play a gig, I play some version of na 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 na. Like, it's just, to me, speaks to me. It's to me, if you ask me to identify Rick in a few notes, it's na 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 na. Like, that's it. Love it. Down, for all the reasons that Doug said, this dreamy, hazy, opium type vibe, just so melodic, so beautifully done. Oh Caroline, Clock Strikes 10. Bing, bing, just I love the harmonics, and then into that classic Rick thing, the descending dee 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 with Tom. It's huge. But the reason I picked this was Southern Girls. I just love that. And I have a personal memory too. I just moved to Toronto, and I got a gig playing in a house band with some, real rockers like Tim Welch from National Velvet and Brian from the Sinisters. And that was one of the songs we were playing. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm in a Toronto bar playing Southern Girls with these cool guys. So it's just emotionally attached to this record. And you know what, man? These guys look so cool on the cover. It's unbelievable. And these guys look pretty cool too. So it was just a whole package. I pick it up. That's my feel-good Cheap Trick album, the one that makes me the happiest.
I have a theory. I don't know if you will agree with this, but on the song Big Eyes, I think he's making a pun with that. I think he's saying, I keep falling for these big guys.
Big guys, I keep falling for them. Oh, interesting.
It's not
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Yeah. I kind of hear that. I don't know.
Yeah, funny.
That's funny how they always.
I'll have to go listen with Free Dude first.
On the early records, they'd always put the 2 pretty boys on the cover. Save the other 2 guys from the back.
Don't worry, guys. We got a great shot of you. It's going to be in there too.
Yeah. You guys are in the back.
Well, they did the same thing with the 1997 cover, even though there are no human beings on the cover. They have Rick and Tom's instruments on the front and Bunny's on the back. Am I correct with that?
Or is it the opposite?
Yeah. Hang on.
Take a look.
Well, you're right about well, yeah, Bunny, yeah, Bunny and Rick on the front,
Oh,
and then
Right.
yeah,
okay,
amazing.
that's right. That's
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I either didn't know that or forgot it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's neat. Yeah.
All right,
Right
Martin,
on.
what's your favorite?
Okay, so I went with All Shook Up. We did a contrarians episode where it's our regular contrarians where you had to have a contrarian choice that is your heart of heart favorites. And so we did a whole episode where we talked about, my love for this album. And I just feel like the George Martin thing, I think he does a better job than Tom Werman. I was really kind of
Definitely.
getting tired of those Tom Werman productions. They were fatiguing, but not because they were challenging. They were just fatiguing because they were kind of blah. They were putting me to sleep. And on here, it's not particularly George Martin-y in many ways. I mean, it's. I love when you said "Live and Let Die." I always thought like Ronnie Spector, like Ramones' End of the Century sort of feel to some of the bigger productions on it. But and after this, the UFO album came out that he produced. 9 months later, No Place to Run came out. So he did these two albums, Air Studios, right? But yeah, I just like it for I think they're sounding a little hungry again, and I think it's heavier when it is heavier, and the pop is still there, but it just sounds like a full band production. They're still doing the same cheap tricks as they've done on the previous albums, but I just think it's the most realized of those four records that kind of fit together for me. It's the last and the best of those four that go together. And yeah, and I love Can't Stop It, but I'm gonna try. What a great chorus on that, like just really soulful. And it's got the Just Got Back, which again is the Roy Orbison skiffle 50s rock thing on it. World's Greatest Lover is the psychedelic swirling Beatlesy kind of one of their. High Priest of Rhythmic Noise is one of their heaviest songs, along with Stiff Competition on Off Wiedersehen and things like that, right? Love Comes Tumbling Down is kind of heavy and fast as well. I Love You, Honey, But I Hate Your Friends. Heavy, groovy, Stonesy sort of one there.
Yeah,
So I don't like the last two songs in the album, Go for the Throat and Who to King. To me, like they're kind of throwaways, but I love everything going right up to that, to the last couple of songs on side two, and that great album cover based on Rennie Magritte, Time Transfixed, right? And I think how did it work? I think every album went platinum, triple platinum for At Budokan, and then this went gold. So this is the start of the step down. It was still kind of successful. Didn't really have a big single on it, but I just remember feeling like it was one of these that was we used to joke as kids, records that were kings of the delete bin. It was a record that I seem to recall seeing deleted a lot. So cheap a lot. In over produced, over brought into stores, can't send them back, cut in the corner, a hole through it, big stack of them. It just seemed to be one of these that was always $4.99 going down to $3.99, going down to 99 cents. For some reason, I just remember that about this. And Queen Jazz, frankly, I remember seeing Queen Jazz deleted a lot as well. It's kind of weird, but no, that's my pick for number one. I just think it's the classic era Cheap Trick done the best out of all of them.
Cool. So my number one's been mentioned already a bunch, and I got to go through my notes here because I wrote a bit about this. So my number one is the debut record, and I'll tell you why. Well, produced by Jack Douglas. I love the rawness of it. The raunchy guitar tones on this are just fantastic. And it has all the elements of what I love about Cheap Trick. So, for example, the quirkiness. Riffs Rick on Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School. He's got this quirky kind of, it's almost like he's just bashing a guitar at random, but he's not. It's very calculated, and it's so melodic, and it's perfect. It's got the great pop hook, So Candy. Fantastic song. It's got that garage punk element, with He's a Whore. You got the Beatle type riffs and vocal melodies of the Ballad of TV Violence. I mean, all of the elements are in there in that record. It's the blueprint for everything that's coming is in that record, And I kind of tend to agree more with Sean. I think they really knew where they were going, and because you could kind of trace a lineage to pretty much every type of song they did after this. The only thing though, Martin, I agree with you on is that after this record, they started like later on, they started to be a little more not less quirky and a little more polished as they progressed. So I kind of miss that in the. I mean, it creeps up now and again in the more recent material, but that's the one thing that I wish they kind of had that quirkiness thing going. But this record, it's very raw, but in a very cool way. Fantastic album.
And to me, you know what? This is what they came back around to realizing. Like, like a lot of bands do, right? It's kind of like, hey, at the end of the day, why are we doing this? Because we like getting in a room and doing it. And that is the thing I do get off the later records. Even though I was talking about earlier, the glom factor, they don't have the same glom factor because just too many years of music. So like I can sit down and listen to a later Cheap Trick record and enjoy it thoroughly, but not walk away with the same memory of the songs. But yeah, I think I take your point there. It was what they were initially. They kind of knew it. Then it deviated and kind of comes back home.
For me, it came back in the Rockford record. That's where it came back.
I got to go back and check that record out again. Yeah,
that's when they said they had the raw edge to it, and that that hunger, that little bit of rawness. For me, that's when it came back for me. Anybody have any? Because I have some honorable mentions. Because I had 7, and it was real difficult to shave those 2 off. So I got to mention those. But before I do, Doug, if you got any honorable mentions, anything that may have just
Yeah, I mean the Rundgren record, Next Position Please, I think has some of their best songs on it. I'm not crazy about the production. It's funny, I think Martin was saying earlier that he can go really minimalist and thin sounding, but then he can also do Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell, which is this widescreen cinemascopic record. So I wish there was a little more meat on the bones of that album, but I just love the songs.
Cool. What about yourself, Sean?
Well, like I said, Dream Police could have easily been in there for me, and maybe on another day they would be on there because but that's an example of a song I think I got all the juice out of it that I could. I have listened to that song and studied that song and played that song so many times. It's almost like I just overdid it for myself. I just need to maybe take a year or 2 away from it. So, but I recognize I loved it so much, right? So probably Dream Police.
Martin?
Yeah, for me, it would be Dream Police next, Heaven Tonight next. And if I was to pick a later one that I think is a high point, the We're All Right album, I think is pretty good. I definitely didn't like Special One. I remember when this came out. Just
no.
Disjointed, weird.
Yeah, exactly.
That has Son of a Woman on it, right?
Yeah, I believe
so. And I like that song. I really like that song. I don't like that record though.
Yeah. So for me, definitely, I would have been going next into Dream Police and Heaven Tonight.
See, the ones I shaved off, I love the stuff they did, the recent stuff. Bang, Zoom, Crazy Hello. Mm-hmm. That's got some really good stuff on it. And the more recent one, In Another World, 2021. Yeah. That's a good record.
Very good.
And, there is some, not that Bunny was a bad drummer, but there's a lot of Dak up front drumming on the more recent stuff. He's doing some pretty cool fills and parts, and I can't name the songs off the top of my head, but there's a couple of songs where like he's right in there, like he's an integral part of the song. And that guy's people think, well, they hired him because he's Rick's son, but the guy's a damn good drummer. And I really dig the recent stuff. I really dig it.
I do too, man. But it's funny. I listened to that whole record on my drive home today, and I can't tell you a song. But that probably speaks more to me because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I was listening. I think what the greatest joy I get out of new Cheap Trick records, because I buy them, is that they're still making them.
Yeah.
I just love the fact that they are driven and compelled to do it. And when I listen to it, I get that moment. And I don't have to have it memorized. I'm in a different stage of my life when I'm listening to it, but I just love that they are doing it. And to hear it done at such a high level, like Robin.
Exactly. And they can do it. And Robin can still sing. Like he's not holding anything back. He's still belting and just as good as he ever did, right? So so let's go around and Doug, we got a moment. Let's talk about your book and anything that you might be working on right now.
Well, this is the book. They Just Seem a Little Weird: How Kiss, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, and Stars Remade Rock and Roll. It's at your favorite bookshop. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere. Right now, I'm presently an editor at the Toronto Star. Don't have any books in the works right now. I have some proposals and ideas that are sort of being hatched at the moment. But that's what I'm up to.
Cool. What about you, Sean? What's happening?
Well, actually, 1 second, and I will show you. This is the latest release, the high quality audio cassette only release from my band Trapper, featuring M. Griner. We did a little EP, songs from the Electric North, to go along with the release of our beer that we put out through Gateway City Breweries. So you can get that at on our link tree at Trapper Rocks on Instagram. I'm working on a new book. I'm in the interview process of the new book, which is edifying and terrifying and all that stuff, and making me wonder what I've been writing about all along, but that's part of it. And I'm working on, I actually just finished writing the songs for a new Crash Kelly record. So I think I'm going to do, yeah, I've got 10. It took me a long time. Some with Mo Berg, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, cool.
And, yeah, and there's a new Lee Aaron record that's we've done all the bed tracks for. That's being worked on, and yeah, a Coney Hatch live record that's in the can. Some fun stuff coming up.
Awesome, cool, man. Martin, what about yourself?
Well, we got the podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. So that's an audio thing. I'm up to 134 episodes of that. We got the Contrarians channel, where we get panels, and we have a worst album edition and a regular edition. Books wise, there hasn't been anything for a little while, but I have 6 finished books that are at the next stage. So they're all with layout and printing. Actually, some are being printed right now. The UFO visual biography and the Judas Priest visual biography are in Turkey getting printed right now. And the other ones are finished. And I got a new book deal for two new books, and I'm well on the way of the first one of that. But yeah, so I've got stuff finished that will slowly come out over the next 6-7 months kind of thing over the next little
MartinPopoff.com. Check it out.
Yep.
So folks, if you enjoy the show, and please consider liking and subscribing. Below I have links for Guitar Hack merch. Got hats, I got shirts, all kinds of stuff. Links are below. There's a PayPal down there as well. If you don't follow me on Instagram or my Facebook group or my Facebook page, all the links are below, and there's an email too if you need to get a hold of me for anything. So I want to thank my guests. I knew this was going to be fun. Cheap Trick's a fun band, fun to talk about. So I knew this was going to be a fun show. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I want to thank these gentlemen for making it an awesome show. And I will catch you all soon as soon as I find the right thing here. All right. Good night, everybody. Take care.
All right.
For a
Good
bit.
night.
Take care.
Yeah.